We are staying with Gaelic Games and a tweet that caught our eye yesterday, which says, assuming the games go ahead as planned, which is something that we've been looking forward to for months, it would be a sensible move for the GAA to reduce the burden on teams travelling long distances and avoid all hotspot counties by playing games in suitable neutral venues. And the author of that is Mike Quirke, the former Kerry footballer, current Laois manager, who joins us on the line. Morning, Mike.
Morning, guys.
Seems like pretty sensible thinking. Like, we're not sure overall, and there's obviously been statements from the Taoiseach yesterday and more conversation about it today, and we're waiting the results of this surveys to see what the general appetite from the players would be. But it does seem on the face of it quite a sensible thing to take the sting out of some of this, at least, in that you're moving it away from counties like the border counties.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I didn't think it was overly revolutionary or anything. It's just, you know, if you look at the situation, even this weekend with Fermanagh supposed to be travelling down to Clare, Kerry going up to Monaghan, guys driving individually in their cars. I just don't think it's necessary. You know, I know John Horan had said earlier in the year something about that it'd take the integrity of the leagues away to bring in neutral venues, but you're not going to have home supporters anyway. So what exactly are you losing out of it? And it just alleviates a little bit of that fear and a little bit of the hacking, where guys have to, you know, go halfway or whatever it is to a venue that isn't a big hotspot, get your game played, get back in your car and go home. You're not having to stay at a hotel like the Kerry guys are, you know, interacting with other people, you know, with waitresses or waiters or cleaning staff or anybody that might possibly pass this on to you. So why would you increase the risk by doing that, you know?
Yeah, I think that latter part is definitely a really good point. In terms of the integrity of it then, like, is there a sense that individual counties then might be less willing to do that? Like, I know you're saying obviously in terms of the fans, but that Monaghan are like, listen, it's still an advantage for us to have to make Kerry drive the 4 or 5 hours up here the previous night, stay over. Like, is it your thought that counties are still in that mindset despite everything else that's going on?
Possibly, yeah. I think, to be fair, most people are of the opinion that we just want to get this played. We want to get games started. We want to see how it all plays out. And I know it's easy for me to say we've got 2 away games. We're travelling to Westmeath on Saturday tomorrow, which we've no issue with, obviously. It's only an hour over the road from Laois, so there's no problem. But like, we've Fermanagh in the last game. And there's a lot of teams that have a lot of travel that I don't think there'd be a huge problem if the GA came out and said, lads, we're going to make this over 100 kilometres here, we're making it a neutral venue. And it just, like, the whole thing with this virus, it's not transferring at training or during games. It's transferring and everything away from the field, you know, like the celebrations after county finals or whatever. So if we can do everything in our power to alleviate the burden of travel and all those other things and stick to the protocols that we have in place, then you're just giving everybody a better chance of getting through this thing without any big drama.
I guess as well, that might be up for debate in the next couple of days, because Tony Houlihan was saying yesterday that the virus is so out of control that it's actually hard to identify where certain outbreaks are starting. And you really feel that there could be a point in the next couple of weeks, Mike, where you could make an argument that players are in a slight bit of danger. Whether or not that happens, though, there is going to be a survey and the results that come out today from the GPA, and there might be a decision perhaps influenced on the back of that. I don't know what the GAA are looking at, but they might take the players' voice into concern. Do you think that's fair, that the players will ultimately decide whether or not this thing goes ahead, if that's what happens? Do you think that perhaps there should be a decision taken out of their hands, where somebody with a bit more, I guess, influence over the entire organisation and I guess independent of the emotion that goes into preparing for inter-county football or hurling should actually make that call on behalf of the players?
I'm not sure. I think obviously if the thing, you know, continues to go the way it is, then it'll be taken out of everybody's hands possibly, and it'll be the people that make those, you know, decisions on the public health that will make the call, and ultimately that'll be the right call. But right now, even just looking at the empirical evidence that was out yesterday, like, we haven't seen a lot of clusters based on sporting activity in the last 7 days. And I appreciate the point that they're running out of contact tracers, so maybe everyone isn't being followed up as diligently as it should be. But the main driver of the virus right now, from the evidence that we've seen, is based in households, and that's why they've taken the step they've taken. And it isn't coming from football fields or hurling pitches. And again, if the players are coming out and saying in the GPA survey, and I don't know what they will, and they say, listen, no, we're happy to carry on, and the association's happy to carry on, then, you know, obviously, if people are happy to do it, it's good to go.
What's your sense, Mike, in terms of your own dealings with the Laois lads, without obviously breaching any confidences, in an overall sense of lads been willing to crack ahead, or have you found that there's been a few people saying, listen, I'm going to sit this one out?
Yeah, the overwhelming majority have been really positive and are really looking forward to getting started. Obviously, there's you know, in every group there's a couple of people with their own personal situations that you know, they make a choice for themselves, which is obviously in this situation, which is completely and utterly unprecedented. You know, we have no problem, you know, respecting anybody's personal decision to do what they want to do. But overwhelmingly, the majority of the players really want to get cracked on with it, you know.
And even in terms of the logistics, like you see the Kerry thing where they've come to a decision that they're all going to drive up separately, that it's just a risk that they don't need to be taken to be on a bus. Like even all those sort of logistic questions that each individual county almost has to map out their own. What's your own approach on something like that, or how are you finding all that generally, Mike, in terms of trying to piece this together logistically?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Obviously, you know, we're lucky. We've a guy named Brian Breen, who's an army guy, who's our COVID kind of supervisor, and to be fair, he's running it with fair military precision. And like I feel much safer going into training with Laois than I do going into a supermarket because of the measures and the protocols and the adherence and application that the players are buying into. Obviously, with this thing, lads, like anybody, a school teacher or anybody walking around town could pick it up and bring it into your training session. And all we're really trying to do is make sure that if somebody does bring it in, that he doesn't spread it to anybody else. And from our point of view, that's as much as we can do. And that's all the stuff with masks and, you know, hand washing, no huddles. Like, we don't spend time in dressing rooms. Anybody who's the dressing room has got a tight time limit. The showers are pretty much off limits, bar a couple of guys who are traveling long distances. There's no food indoors. If you want to eat, you go to the stand in O'Moore Park and everybody's spaced out, or else you take it home. You know, we're driving to the game individually tomorrow, so that, again, you're not, you know, increasing your chances of passing the whole thing on. And again, we haven't seen huge kind of empirical data that says that the virus jumps from person to person while you're playing a game on the field. So if you can alleviate all the other stuff, the time that guys are spending together indoors and in close contact, then you're hopeful that at least if somebody does bring it in, you know, you're not passing it on to somebody else.
It's going to be interesting then what happens if and when the country moves to level 5. Would your opinion change if we move to level 5, or do you think actually NEFIT and the GAA, if they allow the green light to go ahead on level 5, I know Varadkar said the opposite yesterday, that perhaps presenting that data that you mentioned there to actually show that if NEFIT gives the green light within level 5, to actually show the rest of the country this is why we're giving it the green light, might make a bit of a difference. Because, Mike, I just fear a bit of a public backlash at the moment, especially when you see the likes of basketball and League of Ireland being called off.
Yeah, and listen, as from the start of this thing on, like, you have to be driven by the experts in their field here, and these guys know what they're talking about. And if they say, lads, he shouldn't be playing Gaelic football or hurling, then it shuts down, and no one's going to argue with that. But if the data and the evidence that they have at their disposal says, well, the playing of the games, lads, is relatively safe, and, you know, then I don't see a major issue with it. But of course, if somebody says no, lads, then it's gone, and there's no question about it. And no one's trying to say that we know more than these guys, and we'll be driven by their expertise, obviously. But it's just, I'm just fascinated to see, you know, the public reaction in the last couple of days has kind of exploded because of the restrictions now that you can't visit another person's house, and the idea that I can't visit my mom's house, and, you know, and it's basically a false equivalence, like, to make the argument that because I can't visit my mom's house, we shouldn't be playing Gaelic football. Because if you look at what's driving the virus, from what we're being told and what we're being shown, it's not coming from the playing fields. It's coming from people going to people's houses, and then that's jumping from person to person. And like, if that changes, obviously, then we're done, and no one would even question it.
What are your plans for next week, Mike? Obviously, going to Fermanagh is probably up in the air in terms of their set of circumstances as well. It's one of the more, I guess, precarious counties to travel to at the moment in terms of their GAA setup, in terms of the public health setup. Have you made any plans for that yet?
Not really. No, we're trying to focus on Westmeath as much as we can, which has been difficult just because of all the noise, I suppose, in the last couple of days again, and it's difficult from a player's perspective, I suppose, to really stay focused on the job at hand when I suppose everything is going the way it's going. So we'll see what happens this weekend, obviously, between Fermanagh and Clare and what they do there, and then we'll make plans after that.
Mike, go easy on Westmeath this weekend. That's the only advice I have for you. That's the only thing I can impart. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. It was really interesting to get your thoughts from inside the camp, and we'll speak soon.
No problem, guys. Mind yourselves.
Thanks a lot. It's the football manager Mike Quirke on the line.